The sound of rain echoed softly against the window as Amy sat on the edge of her bed, hands trembling slightly, her phone glowing in the dim light. She'd read the words on the screen 100 times now, but they still didn't feel real. 5 months pregnant. The test hadn't lied. The doctor hadn't either. Her heart thudded painfully in her chest as the weight of that truth sank in again, deeper this time. She whispered to herself, barely audible, 5 months. How did it get this far without me even knowing? Outside, thunder rolled somewhere in the distance, like the world itself was bracing for the storm about to come inside her house. Amy hadn't told Brian yet, not because she didn't want to, but because she knew what that conversation would bring. Brian Laverne had been unpredictable lately, short-tempered, restless, the smell of cigarettes and something stronger always lingering when he came home late. She'd seen it in his eyes. That flicker of anger that never used to be there. The man she once laughed with, cooked with, dreamed with, now looked at her like she was part of the problem. Amy took a deep breath, pressing her hands to her belly. She wanted to feel joy. She wanted to imagine this baby as a second chance, a fresh start after years of heartbreak. But every time she thought of telling Brian, fear crept in like a shadow. What if he yelled again? What if he left this time for good? Her phone buzzed. A text from Tammy. You okay, sis? Amy smiled weakly. Tammy had been trying, really trying to rebuild their bond. But she didn't know about the pregnancy yet either. Nobody did. Not until Amy figured out how to tell Brian. The front door slammed downstairs. Her stomach twisted. Amy. Brian's voice cut through the silence, sharp, impatient. Where are you? She wiped her eyes quickly and stood up. Up here, she called out, forcing her voice to sound normal. He came up the stairs heavy-footed, the smell of rain and gasoline trailing behind him. His jaw was tight, his eyes slightly bloodshot. What's this I hear about you skipping work again? He demanded. Amy swallowed. I wasn't feeling well. I had a doctor's appointment. He frowned. Doctor's appointment? For what? You sick again or something? Amy hesitated, then met his eyes. Brian, I'm pregnant. The words hung in the air like broken glass, fragile, dangerous, impossible to take back. Brian's face went blank for a second, then twisted into disbelief. Pregnant. He let out a bitter laugh. You're kidding, right? You can barely handle the 2 we got, and now you're telling me this. Amy felt tears burning at the corners of her eyes. I didn't plan it, Brian. I just found out. 5 months, 5 months. He cut her off, voice rising. 5 months, and you didn't think to tell me. He stepped closer, eyes narrowing. What else you keepin' from me, Amy? You seeing someone else? Her mouth fell open in shock. Brian. No. Don't say that, then why hide it? He snapped, pacing the room. You know how tight money's been, how much pressure I'm under, and you dropped this on me now. Amy's hands shook. Because I was scared, Brian. I didn't know how you'd react. I thought maybe you'd be happy. Happy? He turned on her, his tone dripping with sarcasm. You think this is happy news? Another mouth to feed while I'm bustin' my ass and you're sittin' here cryin' over doctor visits. Something inside Amy broke. You don't understand, she whispered. This baby could be the best thing that's happened to us. Brian let out a hollow laugh and stormed out of the room, the door slamming so hard the frame rattled. Amy stood frozen, the echo ringing in her ears long after he was gone. She sank back onto the bed, clutching her stomach, whispering softly to the baby inside, It's okay, Mama's got you. Later that night, the house was silent except for the steady hum of the fridge and the faint patter of rain. Amy sat at the kitchen table, staring at a half-empty cup of tea gone cold. She'd thought about calling her mom, maybe even Tammy, but she didn't want to hear the "I told you so's," not tonight. She opened her phone and scrolled through photos, her and Brian smiling, holding the kids at the park. The laughter, the messy hair, the sunlight. When had it all started slipping away? Then a message popped up from Chris. Tammy's asking about you. You okay? Amy typed back slowly. Not really. Can we talk tomorrow? Chris replied right away. Yeah, come by the diner. We'll figure something out. She exhaled, relief washing over her. At least someone still cared. The next morning, Amy drove through the gray drizzle to meet Chris. He was waiting by the window, sipping coffee, eyes full of concern. He didn't even let her sit down before asking, "What's going on, sis?" Amy took a deep breath. I'm 5 months pregnant. Chris's eyebrows shot up. What? 5 months? Amy, how I didn't know, she said quickly. I thought I was just stressin', but when I told Brian, her voice cracked. He got angry. Chris. Really angry. Chris's jaw tightened. Did he hurt you? Amy shook her head. No. Not this time. Just yelled. But he's been different lately. He's using again. Chris leaned forward, voice low. You sure? I found pills in his truck last week, and last night, I could smell it. He sighed, rubbing his face. Amy, you can't stay in that house if he's using again. Not with the kids. Not with the baby. I don't know where to go, she whispered. Chris reached across the table, resting a hand over hers. You got us. You ain't doing this alone. Amy's eyes welled up. Thank you. Tammy's been wantin' to see you too, he said softly. She's actually doing better lately. Maybe seeing her will help you remember things ain't all bad. Amy nodded slowly. Yeah, maybe. Back at home, Brian was sitting on the porch, a beer in one hand, staring out at nothing. His jaw clenched when Amy pulled into the driveway. So, he said flatly as she stepped out of the car. You tellin' everyone now. Amy froze. What? Your brother texted me. Guess he thinks I'm some kind of monster. Her heart dropped. Brian, I didn't. He stood up, towering over her. You just love making me look bad, don't ya? I didn't say anything, she said quietly. He stared at her for a long moment, eyes cold. You know what, Amy? Do whatever you want. I'm done trying. And just like that, he walked inside, leaving her standing there in the drizzle, tears mixing with the rain. Amy knew, deep down, something had shifted, maybe forever. That night, she lay awake listening to the rain again. Her mind spun with fear and exhaustion. She thought about her kids, about the baby growing inside her, about the woman she used to be, hopeful, strong, laughing even when life was hard. She wanted to be her again. She reached for her phone and typed out a message to Tammy. Can I come see you tomorrow? Tammy replied almost instantly. Always, sis. For the first time in weeks, Amy felt a flicker of peace. The next morning, sunlight broke through the thinning clouds, painting a pale glow across the kitchen floor. Amy sat quietly, her hands wrapped around a mug of coffee she hadn't touched. Her eyes were heavy from another sleepless night. Her thoughts tangled between hope and heartbreak. She kept hearing his words over and over. Do whatever you want. I'm done trying. They echoed like a curse she couldn't escape. By the time she packed the kids into the car to visit Tammy, her chest felt tight with nerves. She hadn't seen her sister in weeks, not since the last family blow-up where Brian's temper flared in front of everyone. The drive to Tammy's was quiet except for the hum of the road and the faint chatter of the kids in the back seat. Amy kept her eyes fixed on the horizon, trying to shake the image of Brian sitting on the porch, staring through her like she was invisible. When she finally pulled into Tammy's driveway, she saw her sister waiting outside, arms crossed, a faint smile on her face. Tammy had lost more weight since their last visit. Her cheeks looked softer, her eyes more alert, and there was a confidence about her that Amy hadn't seen in years. Tammy waved. Took you long enough, girl. Amy smiled weakly, getting out of the car. Yeah, it's been a week. Tammy's eyes immediately scanned her face, picking up on the exhaustion. You okay? Amy didn't answer right away. Instead, she glanced at the kids. Go inside and wash up, okay? Once they were out of earshot, Amy sighed and whispered, I told Brian. Tammy frowned. About the baby. Amy nodded. And, he lost it. Her voice cracked. He said he was done trying. He's been drinking again, Tammy. And I think he's using too. Tammy's expression hardened. Oh no, you can't stay there if he's like that. I don't have anywhere else to go, Amy whispered, her hands trembling. I can't just take the kids and leave. Not yet. Tammy placed a hand on her shoulder. You can stay here for a few days if you need to. Chris and me will figure something out. Tears welled in Amy's eyes. I can't keep doing this, Tam. I can't keep pretending like things are okay. I thought maybe this baby would bring us closer, but it's just making everything worse. Tammy sighed, her tone soft but firm. You gotta think about yourself now, Amy, and that baby. You can't fix someone who doesn't want to be fixed. Amy looked away, blinking fast. I know, I keep remembering the good times. Before everything got so messed up. Tammy gave a small smile. You always see the best in people, even when they show you their worst. Amy laughed weakly through the tears. Yeah, and that's my biggest problem. They sat in silence for a while, the air thick with unspoken memories. Then Tammy said quietly, you remember what Mom used to say? Sometimes you gotta break before you can heal. Maybe this is that moment. Sometimes you gotta break before you can heal. Maybe this is that moment. Amy stared at her sister, realizing how much she'd changed. Tammy used to be the one drowning in denial, stuck in anger and bitterness. Now she sounded like the voice of reason. Maybe you're right, Amy whispered later that afternoon. Chris dropped by. His familiar laugh filled the room, but when he saw Amy's swollen eyes, the smile faded. I'm guessing Brian didn't take it well. Amy shook her head. He's not the same anymore. Chris, I don't even recognize him. Chris rubbed his chin. You think he's back on pills? Amy hesitated. Yeah, I'm sure of it. Chris exhaled hard. That man's gonna end up destroying himself if he don't stop. You can't let him drag you down with him. I just don't know what to do, Amy said quietly. Chris put a hand on her shoulder. You already know what to do. You just ain't ready to do it yet. Amy looked at him, eyes glistening. And if I leave, where do I go? How do I raise 3 kids alone? You got us, he said simply. You've always had us. That was the thing about family, no matter how messy life got. Somehow, they always found their way back to each other. That night, Amy tucked the kids into bed, in Tammy's guest room. As she turned off the lights, she felt the baby move for the first time. A tiny kick, gentle but real. She gasped softly, pressing her hand against her belly. Tears filled her eyes, not of fear this time, but of something deeper. Hope, she whispered. We're gonna be okay. But the peace didn't last long. Around midnight, her phone started buzzing. Brian's name lit up the screen. She hesitated before answering. What do you want, Brian? She said quietly. His voice was slurred. You tellin' everybody my business now. Chris called me, said I need help. You running around playing the victim again? Amy sighed. You're drunk. I'm not doing this tonight. You think you can just take my kids and hide? He snapped. They're my kids too, Brian, she said, voice trembling. Not if you walk away. The line went dead. Amy stared at the phone, heart pounding. For the first time, she wasn't just scared of losing him, she was scared of what he might do next. The next morning, Tammy insisted they call the police if Brian showed up. He's not stable, she warned. You can't let him near the kids right now. Amy agreed, though part of her still hoped he'd calm down, but hope doesn't change what's broken. By noon, there was a knock on the door. Amy's heart jumped. She peeked through the window. Brian's truck sat in the driveway. Tammy, she whispered urgently. He's here. Tammy's face hardened. Stay here. But before she could reach the door, Brian was already pounding on it. Amy, open up. Tammy shouted through the door. You need to leave. Brian, she doesn't want to talk to you right now. I just want to see my kids. He yelled back. They're fine. Tammy snapped. You're the one who needs help. Amy stood frozen, tears streaming down her face. The baby kicked again, as if sensing her fear. Chris arrived minutes later, his truck screeching to a stop. He jumped out, eyes blazing. Brian, get out of here before you do something stupid. Brian turned, his face red. She's my wife. Chris, you don't get to tell me what to do. Chris stepped closer. Not when you're high, she ain't. You need to get clean and get help. Man. Brian's eyes darted between them, anger, shame, confusion, all twisting together. Then, without another word, he turned and stormed off. Slamming his truck door so hard it echoed down the street, Amy collapsed onto the couch, sobbing uncontrollably. Tammy rushed over, wrapping her arms around her. It's over, Tammy whispered. You did the right thing. But Amy knew it wasn't really over. Not yet. Days passed. The house grew quieter. The kids asked when they could go home. Amy didn't know how to answer. One afternoon, she finally called the police, not to press charges, but to report his erratic behavior. I just want to make sure he doesn't show up again, she told the officer. When she hung up, she felt both guilty and relieved, like she'd finally taken a step toward saving herself. Tammy hugged her tightly that night. You're stronger than you think, Amy. Amy smiled faintly. Maybe I'm finally starting to believe that. Weeks later, Amy's doctor appointment confirmed what she already felt: the baby was healthy. As she listened to the steady heartbeat echo through the room, she broke down crying. For the first time in a long while, they were tears of gratitude. The nurse smiled gently. You've been through a lot, haven't you? Amy nodded. More than I thought I could handle. The nurse touched her arm. You're still standing. That's what matters. As Amy drove home, sunlight spilled across the road like a sign that maybe, just maybe, things were turning around. But the peace was short-lived. That evening, as she helped Tammy cook dinner, her phone rang again. This time, it was the police. Ma'am, we've taken Brian Laverne into custody, the officer said. He was found intoxicated and causing a disturbance outside your old residence. We wanted to let you know you're safe. Amy froze, knife still in hand. He's arrested. Yes, ma'am. You and your kids don't need to worry tonight. She hung up, her heart pounding, a strange mix of relief and sorrow washing over her. Tammy looked at her. Concern etched in her face. What happened? Amy whispered. They arrested him. For a long time, neither of them spoke. The only sound was the quiet simmer of the pot on the stove. Finally, Amy said softly, maybe this is what it takes. Maybe he'll finally get help. Tammy nodded. Maybe so, but even if he doesn't, you did what you had to do. Amy wiped her tears and smiled faintly. For the first time, I feel like I can breathe. The next few days passed in a blur. The weight that Amy had carried for months, fear, guilt, confusion, started to lift, slowly but surely. Every morning felt a little brighter, the air a little lighter. She still woke up sometimes, expecting to hear Brian's voice in the kitchen, but when she remembered he wasn't there, she felt something strange. Peace. She spent more time with her kids now, laughing, cooking breakfast, dancing around the living room to old country songs. For the first time in a long time, the house felt like a home again. There were no slamming doors, no raised voices, no walking on eggshells, just laughter, music, and the faint hum of normal life. Tammy noticed it too. You're smiling more lately, she said one morning as Amy stirred a pot of oatmeal. Amy shrugged, grinning. Guess I forgot what that felt like. Tammy chuckled softly. You look like yourself again. That glow's cumin back. Amy looked down at her belly, gently rubbing the small curve. 5 months already? Feels like forever, and yesterday at the same time. Tammy nodded. You know, I used to think happiness was about having everything you want. Turns out, it's just about having peace. Amy smiled, her eyes soft. You sound like Dr. Phil. They both burst out laughing, the kind of laughter that shakes off the dust of old pain. But even as life started to mend itself, Amy couldn't help but wonder what was happening to Brian. The police said he'd been transferred to a rehab facility for evaluation after his arrest. The thought of him there alone, angry, detoxing, tugged at her heart. No matter what he'd done, he was still the man she'd once loved. One afternoon, as she was folding baby clothes, she found an old photo tucked inside a box. Her and Brian at a carnival years ago. They were smiling, his arm around her waist, cotton candy in hand. She stared at the photo for a long time, tears welling up. Tammy walked in and noticed. You okay? Amy nodded slowly. Yeah, just remembering the good days. Don't let the good memories trick you into forgetting the bad, Tammy said gently. You can miss the person you thought he was, but still protect yourself from the one he became. Amy swallowed hard. You're right, I just wish it didn't have to end like this. Tammy sat beside her. Maybe it ain't an end, maybe it's just a break in the story. Weeks turned into months. As Amy's belly grew, so did her strength. She started posting small updates online for fans who'd been worried. Each post was filled with hope and honesty. Life's been hard, she wrote once, but sometimes you gotta lose a little to find yourself again. Her followers flooded the comments with love and encouragement. They told her she was an inspiration, that watching her rebuild gave them courage to face their own battles. Amy read every word, tears in her eyes. For years, she had been known as one half of the 1000 Delby sisters, the funny, loving, chaotic sibling duo. But now, people were seeing another side of her. Strength, growth, resilience. Tammy was changing too. She'd kept her promise to herself, continuing therapy, sticking to her diet, even starting to exercise more. The sisters went on long walks together in the evenings, laughing and talking about everything and nothing. One night, as they sat under the porch light, Amy said softly, You know, Tam, I used to think you were the strong one. Tammy raised an eyebrow. Me, you're the one raising 2 boys and carrying another while rebuilding your whole life. Amy smiled. We both got strong in our own ways, I guess. Tammy nodded. Yeah. Maybe that's what being sisters is about. Falling apart, then helping each other back up again. They clinked their soda cans together, and sat in comfortable silence, watching the fireflies dance through the night. Then came the letter. It arrived one morning in a plain envelope, postmarked from the rehab facility. Amy stared at it for a long time before opening it. Amy stared at it for a long time before opening it. Amy, I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, and maybe I never will. I'm sorry for everything. For the yelling, for the lies, for the pain I caused you and the kids. I was lost. I let the worst parts of me win, the drugs, the anger. They controlled me, but I'm getting help now. I don't expect you to come back, but I hope one day you'll remember that I loved you, even when I didn't know how to show it. Brian, her hands shook as she folded the letter back up. For a long time, she just sat there, tears falling silently onto her lap. Then she whispered to herself, I forgive you, but I can't go back. Tammy found her later, staring out the window. Amy handed her the letter. Tammy read it quietly, then handed it back. You did what you had to do. Sometimes love means walking away. Amy nodded. I know. The months rolled on. And before long, it was time. Amy's contractions started early in the morning. She woke Tammy with a shaky voice, half laughing, half crying. It's time. The next few hours were a whirlwind. Rushed bags, frantic calls, hospital lights, nurses' voices. Amy's heart raced, but amid the chaos, she felt a strange calm. Tammy held her hand through every wave of pain, whispering encouragement. You got this, sis. You've always had this. When the baby finally came, a healthy baby girl with dark curls and bright eyes, Amy sobbed uncontrollably. The nurse placed the baby on her chest, and the world seemed to stand still. She looked into that tiny face and whispered, "You're my miracle." Tammy wiped her eyes and smiled. She's beautiful. Chris arrived minutes later, carrying flowers and snacks. Well, look at you, Mama Bear. He grinned. She's perfect. Amy smiled weakly, tears still streaming down her face. We're gonna be okay. I know it this time. Back at home, the sisters decorated the nursery together. Pink walls, soft lights, a mobile with tiny stars that spun slowly to lullabies. Every night, Amy rocked her baby to sleep, humming softly. Her heart finally quiet. She hadn't heard from Brian again since the letter. Part of her hoped he was getting better, but she didn't dwell on it. Her focus was here on her children, her family, her peace. Tammy sometimes teased her. Look at you, Supermom, and Amy would laugh, tired but happy. Months later, she received one final update. Brian had completed rehab and entered a halfway house. He'd written another letter, shorter this time. Thank you for not giving up on me, even when I gave up on myself. I'm staying clean. I hope one day I can be the father my kids deserve. Amy folded the letter and placed it in a box with the baby's hospital bracelet and photos from her first month. Not to dwell on, but to remember where she'd been, what she'd survived, how far she'd come. As autumn turned to winter, the Slaton family gathered for Thanksgiving at Tammy's place. Laughter filled the house again. Chris was telling a ridiculous story. Amanda was arguing about the best way to season turkey. And the kids were running in circles. Amy looked around the table, her eyes shining. You know, she said softly, I used to think happiness was something you had to chase, but it's right here. Always was. Tammy smiled across the table. Told you peace ain't about having everything. It's about letting go of what hurts. Amy nodded, holding her baby close. Yeah, I finally get that. The camera of life lingered on that image of family scarred, but healing. A woman reborn through pain. A sisterhood stronger than ever. And as the fire crackled in the background, Amy whispered to her daughter, You're my new beginning. The baby stirred, smiling in her sleep, and for the first time in what felt like forever, Amy felt whole. Amy felt whole.